So my name's Neil Eddy. I'm a triathlete. Long distance Ironman is my sort of preferred event. I've been competing in sport for 20 years, in triathlon for almost that length of time. I'm director of communities at Mounts Bay, and like I said, in my pastime, I train for long distance triathlon.
So what inspired you to start your journey into triathlon?
So sport's always been a massive part of my life. From a young age, I always competed in a lot of different sports. I never really had an evening off when I was younger, always competing in something. I'd go from hockey across to the swimming pool and vice versa. And I just always had a passion to compete, and my main sort of drive was always against myself in competition, and I just love the sporting arena. I happened to do a triathlon 20 years ago now, and at the time it was something that I just did to challenge myself. We never really trained for it, didn't really know what we were sort of doing, and then sort of 5-10 years down the line I realised, actually if I train for this, then I might do alright in this sport. And then I slowly just stepped up through the distances, and here we are today when I'm competing in long distance in a silly sport that takes up a lot of time.
I had a question from social media, was how do you balance work, home and competitive sport?
It's always a challenge, and I always say to people, there's always time. There's always time to fit things in. Bit of heat training tonight. A 30-minute effort, that sweet spot, and a couple of VO2 efforts at the end. Legs are tired from running last night. Got to get it done. Let's get the sweat on. And what I do is training to compete, and what other people maybe are looking to do is train to be healthy and fitness. And I think you can always squeeze that 10, 15, 20 minutes in a day, and it's just making it part of your routine that you feel more accountable to yourself when you're looking to do that. Whether you've got goals along the way is a massive help. For me, if I wasn't competing to a high level and had an end goal and what I'm trying to achieve, then getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to train, might be a bit of an endless task for me. But if I've got a goal that's set, and that could be for anyone, whether that's a fitness goal or a health goal, or they want to do their first 5k run or first 10k run, whatever it is, it's just kind of setting that goal and working towards it. But in terms of balancing work and life hours, I wouldn't say I always get it right. I kind of miss certain things, or family time, or family events over the years, or birthdays, or different things, because I'm often competing or other things. But for me, it's just a big part of my life, and it is just who I am, and it's making it part of that and just enjoying the process. And there's times when maybe you don't want to be there, but my dedication and commitment has always been my biggest strength.
Not the ideal prep for Kona conditions when it's going to be 30 degrees and humid, but get the session done, keep the hat on, try and keep warm as I can. The rain's not ideal for September, is it?
And following on from that, obviously we're from West Cornwall, and doing what you're doing within the triathlon scene, what were the stages you followed to kind of get to that goal of where you are now? How did that sort of, what was that journey? What did that journey look like?
I guess when I came into sport, triathlon's quite a young sport in terms of, comparing it to a football or rugby or netball or those other sports out there, and team sports and athletics. But because triathlon's quite a young sport, when I started, I didn't really know about the training for the event. I kind of just, me and my friends that train down here, we just lived off the fact that we swum and we ran around a bit doing sport, that we could go and do a triathlon, and we'd be like, oh, there's a triathlon coming up, I should probably go for a 30-minute run soon, not knowing the process, the amount of times we'd cycle over to, do a half an hour cycle and think that was enough to train for an event at the time. But I guess back to your question, it's kind of just building into that process, and it doesn't matter what sport you're in or what level you're at, it's just kind of staircasing up. So it was like the first time was complete a triathlon, next time was just trying to improve myself. And I guess in my sport, your biggest competitor is yourself in trying to improve. You can't worry about what the other competition's doing, and if they're improving, you just need to up your game as you go as well. But it's I competed locally, then I competed nationally, and then I competed internationally. It was the process with it, really.
The sort of the journey now for someone that's starting off from ground zero, one of the young boys or girls that you might see at school here, their journeys may be a little bit easier based on some of the things you've done to forge those contacts and forge those things that happen locally. I know there's a local sprint triathlon organisation locally that's put on some races which they were never around. I'm assuming when you first started out, you probably had to travel further afield, did you?
There was a couple of historic races on. You know, my first one I did was Perranporth Triathlon, was a bit of an extreme triathlon. You know, with big surf swim, hard run, hard bike, and I remember completing it going, I don't want to do that again. You know, why did I sign up to this? Why did I buy a brand new bike and do this sport? It was really hard. You know, and now doing a distance that, you know, that length is relatively easy for me. But for anyone getting into the sport and similar sports, it's finding those local races, finding something that will challenge yourself, finding friends that you can train with occasionally. You know, I do 95% of the training on my own, but having a group of people that I swim with in the morning makes you more accountable again to get up in the mornings. You know someone else is going to be there, whereas if it's just getting up for yourself, you're not always going to do that. But if you know you're going to get up and train with someone, that motivation, it might push you. Whether you think you're going to just go for a local running club and train easy tonight, but then someone runs a bit faster and that just pushes you on, you know. And even at my level now, competing in the sport for 20 years, that having someone running next to you and running faster, you know, or a coach there going, oh, you've got a little bit more in you, and you think, oh yeah, I have actually. Oh yeah, I'll push on a little bit more now. And
keeps you accountable.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving on from that, one of the other questions we had online was, did you have an influence or a role model that helped you along the way during the process?
Yeah, I've kind of been asked that before. Not necessarily in my sport, I suppose. I just always thrived on watching people that succeeded to a really high standard and almost dominated a sport. And you know, we live in an area where you've got your Roger Federers or Rafa Nadal, or you've got Tiger Woods or something like that greatness that's there, that they win and then they kept winning. And one of my biggest strengths is that I just do anything I can to win, and that's what drives me on in training is to compete. If I come second and someone's better than me and they've beaten me for that reason, I'm happy with that. But if I've done something myself and not being able to achieve my goal, then that's on me. But it's just anyone that, I guess, sport and success that inspires me as a whole, and just seeing people that compete really well. And it could be people that compete locally as well and go on to greater things and are maybe good role models for people locally, and show that there's aspiration and inspiration from Cornwall that you can go on to other levels. You don't have to have, you know, I don't know, you don't have to have the best coach or the best people around. You can still succeed in what you do.
Yeah, I'm sure. So in terms of like competing, and when you've done the training, you've done the work, how do you prepare mentally for those competitions?
It was something I didn't really realise I did for a lot of years. So I visualise the race and I visualise what happens, and the training is kind of like the confidence of it. So if you know you've done the work and you've done those long runs and you've been out there and done a 20-hour training week, or earlier in the summer you've done a 25-hour training week of things, that's kind of, you're not really thinking about that, but psychologically you feel stronger and ready to race. So it kind of, I guess it just builds that confidence. So visualising the race, and I didn't realise, till a few years ago, 10 years ago, I remember someone saying to me that, that I was very quiet around the race, and he was asking me questions and I didn't even respond, and I didn't even know I did that. Before the morning of the race, I just didn't realise that I was just zoned in, and it wasn't because I was trying to zone in, it was just I generally didn't know that I did it. I'm a bit better now, so I used to be, I get, as that race week builds up, I get more and more, I guess the nerves kick in, but in a different way. So I might get a bit quieter, a bit more in myself, and I'm within my own thoughts, and I didn't realise I do stuff. And my wife Emily's around me, and she knows what I'm like, and she just gives me a bit of distance and supports me, and I'm like, I didn't even know I was like that. But I try to make a bit more light of it now, and try to still crack a few jokes and just try and relax to just take the pressure off. But also sometimes now, competing in that sport, the nerves are also because of the distance you're going to compete. So it's like, it's not just the race, I'm out there to suffer, and I'm going to be out there for a long time, and things are not going to go 100% my way. At some point I'm going to be really in hurt locker, and I need to find a way of overcoming that.
And mentally you must know that your competitors are going to be in that similar mind frame. So it's like, no one's out there just breezing through the race. They're all in their own minds and in their own bodies. They're suffering at points, and I guess it's trying to gauge when you're out in the race as well. You must have people that you kind of very competitive with. You're like, yeah, well, if I'm feeling like this, you're probably feeling like it as well.
Yeah. Or you run past them and you keep a straight face and you just think, I'm not going to let on how I'm feeling. Yeah. But if I'm chasing someone or they're chasing me, that I just make out that I'm feeling okay. But anyone at that certain points in an Ironman, you're going to have highs and lows of how you're feeling, and it'd be the same for anyone running a marathon. No one feels perfect the whole way through the race. It's just getting through those darker moments. And I always say to people, you learn more from the hours of adversity, race course, than you do when things go perfectly. Like, some of my proudest moments are the days where things haven't gone well and somehow I've managed to get to the finish line, and I don't know how I've managed to do that.
So how can you explain how, at the moment, how a normal training week would look? How does that get split down between the run, the swim and the cycle on a traditional week, and how that changes the closer you get, and when that sort of comes to a crescendo, and then as that tapers off when you get closer to race week, how does that traditional schedule look like?
In my sport, some people do it different ways, but we generally, the coach I work with, Joel, we've worked together for a long period of time. He knows me really well now, and actually sometimes I look at the schedule, and when a rest day appears, I'm like, how did he know I needed that at that time, and the body was asking out for that rest day. But generally it works on a bit of a 4-week cycle with 3 weeks on and then a week easier, and not an easy week completely, but there's a bit less structure in there, and then I have a rest day, I don't know, maybe once every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that, completely off, and then other times it might be recovery days. But the general week for me would be maybe 3 swims, 4 runs, 2-3 bikes is all I can do. Ideally you do 3 or 4 bikes if I had more time, and then a gym conditioning session each week as well in there, and that will look like, in terms of swimming, you'll have a threshold swim, an aerobic swim and a bit of speed work. Same for running, you'll have a distance run with some structure in there, some steadier runs, and then a run session in the week, and same on the bike, a VO2 max session, and then a longer ride on the weekends, maybe with some efforts in occasionally, and that's the general structure of the week.
You may not always answer this, but do you have a preferred discipline and a least favoured discipline?
I guess I come from a swimming background, so swimming's my I wouldn't necessarily it's my preferred discipline. I actually grew in the sport with my running, so when I first started the sport I was a bit better at swim and cycle, and then the run became my strength because it was something I had to work on, and then my running sort of picked back up. Even though I ran when I was younger, I sort of didn't run for a lot of years, so it just took time getting back there now, and a lot of the hard work I've done over the years now, actually my confidence in the race is I feel like I can outrun people, and I will have confidence on the run course that I will catch people if I need to, and where they are. So, and I'm lucky that I get off to a good start in the swim. I try and hold and limit any time losses on the bike as I can, and then the run, I just try and run with confidence and do what I need to do. But the bike is probably my weaker discipline, and it's something we've tried to work on, but that's just, I'm not a weak cyclist, but it's my weaker discipline of the 3.
The other question we had, which came from social media, have you seen over the last 10, 12 years since London, and then going through each Olympic year, with triathlon becoming more and more popular, obviously with the Brownlee brothers, and then different people are now the most recent British winner of the Olympic gold medal. Have you seen younger people that you teach and you see around within the communities that started to widen the horizons of triathlon?
I guess things go in cycles and sports go in cycles. So I guess Olympic years and things, certain sports do pick up around that time. And it's just having those opportunities for the kids locally to be able to do those things. So when the first Tri-Series came out in Cornwall a few years ago, it really picked up with the kids and the juniors that were doing it, and we saw a lot
you know, and that sort of dipped away when that series went for a few years. I'm hoping it's sort of picking back up, and those opportunities are there for the younger people to take part. And it's those little events around, you know, whether they go surf lifesaving, or they do the prom swim, or they do the biathlon, all those little events that maybe in a few years' time they might come back to the sport.
So the next question is, what do you do for enjoyment outside of work and sport? This question has probably changed over the last 12 months, right?
Yeah. Previously it was still sport, but no, family time now for sure. You know, as you alluded, we've got a little baby at home now. Getting time to spend with my wife on the little one is you know, is the best time of the week. And you know, I realised that in the summer when I went away on a training camp. You know, it was the first time I'd spent that time away. And it wasn't that moment that I realised it would happen that I was like, right, I'm going on training camp, set everything up. And it was only that moment I went to walk out the door, you know, before I went to the airport, that I was like, oh, this is different. Yeah, not felt that before. And, you know, luckily nowadays you've got FaceTime and stuff. So when I was away in the French Alps, you know, I could FaceTime my little one and FaceTime home and sort of keep that connection. But, you know, family's a massive part of that now. But yeah, doing stuff together, adventures, going off places, you know, very lucky in my sport that those adventures can happen in the locations that we go to, and some of the locations we get to go to, and like as you alluded to, Hawaii and Kona and stuff, you know, we're going out there this year as a family, so that looked very different to when I competed there a couple of years ago, which would be great.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in getting into triathlon, and what's the best first steps?
Try and find a local club or some you know, local people that you can train with. Maybe set yourself a goal, see where you want to be, and that might be, you know, when you're first starting out, you might want to set realistic targets, not set anything too big, but kind of just go, well, actually, I'd like to compete in the sport, I'd like to complete my first triathlon, and then reassess where it is. You know, that might be where you want to stop, or it might be something that you want to continue and come part of your lifestyle, and cycling and running and being outdoors might be part of something that you enjoy or enjoy with family members and things. But very much finding a good group of people you can train with, and even if you haven't got a local triathlon club, you know, join the local running club or a local swimming masters group that you can do those things individually, because there's not many triathlon clubs down this way, but if you can do those things individually, then you can pick up the other bits along the way and enjoy it with your friends, and yeah, for sure.
Has there been a most challenging moment within the sport of triathlon for you over the 20 years?
There's probably a couple, you know, a couple of moments that really define, I think, in the longer distance. You know, when I was racing short course races, you know, I finished in the World Champs fourth a couple of times, and it was, you know, seconds in it, and it was kind of something I had to overcome. And then when I won the Amateur World Championships, I was like, that's great, and I need to move on to something else. And when I went to the long course racing, and over the last 6-7 years that I've been racing Ironman, you know, there's a few occasions where, you know, the very first time I raced in Kona, you know, not knowing what it's about, not understanding nutrition in the right way, and just learning so much that, you know, I could have easily finished that race after 5 miles on the run. I could have literally gone to sleep on the side of the road, you know, didn't get the nutrition right. I was I was dizzy, I was dehydrated, and I was like, well, actually, I'm here. I don't know if I'm ever going to come back here. I have, but, you know, and come back and succeeded quite well there. But at the time I didn't know, and I was like, if I need to walk the next 21 miles, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to honour the race and finish the race. And then that's happened. Similar things have happened in a couple of other races where, you know, I'd had COVID 2 weeks before a race, and I got onto the run, and, you know, I looked at Emily on the run. She's normally thinking, at some point he's normally happy and smiling and saying hello, and for the whole run I was just like head down. I just need to suffer. And after 9 miles of the run, I was like, I got 17 miles to run, and I'm feeling horrendous, you know. And it's just kind of, I guess you understand how much the body can do, and how much you can push yourself, and how you can get through those moments that afterwards you're like, I'm glad I've done that, you know, without going too extreme and putting yourself in a on a stretcher at the end of the race or so, which I have done as well, but, you know, for good reasons, and winning races. But yeah, it's just kind of
and again, those things make you stronger though, right? So the next race you learn from it, or you can rely on that you've put the miles in, and that you've covered those bits, and you think, right, I'm ready to go again.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of you learn your body, and you learn how to manage it. You know,
at times it's like, oh, does my body need some carbs? Does my body need sodium? What is it? Why am I feeling quite like this at the moment? Sometimes you didn't get it right, and you need to kind of understand your body and how to push it. And then there's times where, you know, you suffer through and you get to that finishing line, and that success is worth every bit of that suffering on the course, you know.
How will the Kona week look? Obviously it'll look very different to being here in Cornwall. So how does that work? How far in advance do you arrive there? How do you prepare for that? Obviously it's a long way to travel. How does that work for the...
Yeah, so I've lucky enough, this is the 5th time I've been to Kona, so hopefully I'm experienced enough to kind of think what works well for me, and things work for different people. But being in that climate, for anyone that doesn't know, you know, it's very humid. I made the mistake of having a look the other day and it's 99% humidity. So that means that, you know, when you're sweating and stuff, your body's not cooling down. So it's how do you train for that leading up to the event. So I work with Precision Fuel and Hydration. We're working together on a bit of a heat adapted plan. So over the next 10 days, I'll do some heat training every day for 10 days and try and hold on to that going into the race. And then leading into the race, we're going to fly out to Texas, to Houston. We've got some contacts there that we go and stay with, and that's really humid, really hot, and that just helps break it up. So rather than fly direct to Kona, so we'll stop off in Texas, and because we've got a little baby now, you know, it breaks up the journey. So we'll stay there for a week, acclimatise onto Kona, get there a week before the race, and then do a few sessions during the day in the heat, but not too much, not to drain the body, but just enough to kind of acclimatise, get used to the conditions. And then the race week will very much look like probably 6 hours worth of training of different bits, doing all 3 during the week, just a little bit of intensity, and then taking it easy towards the end of the week and just loading up and getting things right and
ready for race day.
First big day in the woodlands, boiling hot. Blew up a little bit on the run, but that's part of the process, I guess. Just need to get a bit more heat acclimatised. 4 hours on the bike with 2 1-hour efforts, and then a build run for 75 minutes off. Time to hydrate.
So have you thought any further than Kona? Is there any plans beyond Kona, or is just you purely focused on Kona for a moment?
Yeah, and I think it doesn't matter what level you're at, you know, whether you're going there to try and compete for the podium or you're going there for the first time. It takes a lot of capacity, I think, through the year, and like I said, this is the 5th time I've done it, and you don't realise how much mental capacity I think it takes through the year. It slowly builds, you know, you think about it early in the year, you think about it in those winter training sessions, you know, I need to get out tomorrow because, you know, in 6 months' time I'm racing, you know, against the world's best, and then it just builds, and then it becomes more and more part of your everyday focus. So it's in my mind all the time at the moment. I haven't really thought too much past that. You know, we have agreed as a family and together that this will be the last time that I go to Kona. I've had success there before, finished second and narrowly missed out on the top spot of my age group, so I'm always going back there to compete. And in Kona you get what we call a Umeki Bowl, which is famous to the triathlon world, that's the trophy, and it means, I won't try and explain what it means in the high-end people's words, but it's you know, quite a
prestigious thing.
Prestigious thing for them to hand out as a. So going back to try and get on the podium and get another Umeki Bowl is the target at the moment, and anything past that, you know, maybe life balance will balance out a bit more towards the family and less around my training and competing and everything that I do.
Congratulations on Kona.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I said before, was it like an old friend, or was it a new relationship that you'd have to re-establish with someone?
It does feel a bit of a re-establish, so because they split the men's and women's races now, so normally the event's every year, but the men go there every other year and the women are the years in between that. So I was there 2 years ago. I think I said in the last video I sort of wanted to go back because last time I was really sick and just about managed to get onto the start line the day of the race. So this time was a bit of redemption,
and I wanted to go back and really prove to myself that I could still perform there. You know, a few years on, my last big performance there was 2019, and then obviously the race had a few years off. So then since then, I managed to race there 2022. So this is the next chance I had to do that since 2019. You know, getting sick in 2022 and then coming back in 2024. So it was almost 5 years ago since I was last on the podium there.
Right. And how do you feel about your performance?
It was, I was massively elated at the finish. The race, it just pushes you like nowhere else. So it's really hard to describe to people what it's like to race in that climate. Everyone's raced in hot climates or been on hot holidays, but to just race in that humidity and to that level of competition is probably the deepest field of competition that I've competed in. I think potentially that the age group I was competing in was just absolutely stacked with talent and people that, to finish in second place, you know, I was massively elated, and to see the family on the finish line, which I've never had that experience before, to see my little baby and my wife, and they were over the finish line and managed to get in the finishing area, which was, you know, one of the nicest feelings I think I've ever had. But at the same time, you know, it was short-lived for 5 minutes, whilst I then said to her, my face is tingling, my hands are tingling, I need to go to the medical tent, I need to go lie down for a bit, I'll see you in a bit, I'm okay. But yeah, it was amazing, and to pull out that performance, and it's one of those races where if something's slightly off, all of a sudden the performance is way off. Unlike other climates, you can kind of manage to get through, but if like I say, if you're slightly off that percentage, then things can snowball really quickly, and you have to manage things really, really well. And that's the nutrition side of things, which people don't often talk about in racing. Yeah,
I can see that, you know, from just looking at the climate, the course, and the field, it's never going to take any prisoners. It's just going to take you out if you're not on it. And yeah, so from, you know, your performance point of view, I should say you must be absolutely delighted.
It was almost the perfect day, and you know, I think long distance triathletes maybe never get that perfect race day that you'd ever have. There's always going to be something, you know. Speaking to multiple world champion a few years ago, and he was saying, you know, there's points when he was, you know, massively in the lead where he's still having massive low points, and that showed this year in the race where the professionals in the field, you know, going from like 1st to 18th within, you know, 5 or 10 miles on the run. So it can easily happen at our level, and the way I was feeling halfway through the run to get that performance, if someone said to me at 12 miles, you can take second place, I'd be like, I'll bite your hand off, I'll take that now. It's only afterwards when you reflect, just going, I was so close, you know, I was in the lead at that point, you know, and just before I was shortly overtaken on the run, but yeah, it was an amazing feeling, and then you reflect on that race and what goes into it, and the sacrifice the family and I've made over the last 6 months, 12 months to get to that start line. It's almost a relief in the same time that you've got a performance that you knew you were capable of.
What was going through your mind during key moments of the race?
I actually felt amazing for 90% of the day, which doesn't often happen. You know, you normally sort of find it. So we had the swim element, you know, which is normally my strength. So I just wanted to get out in front. There was a couple of races that go off in front of you, like the wave of swim. So there was the disability field that went off in, like sort of 10 minutes in front of us. So we had to sort of navigate through them, and a younger age group where we had to swim through. So it was just trying to stay in the swim, it was almost staying focused through each element. So I'm just trying to stay at the front of the swim. I was sort of 3rd, 4th place in the swim, just trying to stay with those guys. After about a K on the swim, I was like, oh, my neck's really stinging. I'm rubbing, like the new suit's obviously rubbing on my neck. You know, we've still got some scars set now, and the next day was massive. And my wife was like, you've had a jellyfish sting like the others. I was like, no, I know what jellyfish sting feels like, I think. And then when someone else said it to me on the plane, I was like, oh yeah, maybe they're right, because it was right around my neck. So I think K into the swim, I think I got stung by a jellyfish, and maybe it was there for a bit, but I just kind of ignored it and just carried on. And then the bike, which is normally, I'm not a weak cyclist, but it's my weaker discipline maybe compared to others. You know, I make more time up on the swim and run, but I'm still a strong cyclist, and I just stayed at the front of the race. And I've never felt so good getting off the back of a 112 mile bike. I'm normally 80, 90 miles in, like I just want to get on the run. This is, one, you're feeling a bit bored in a way because it's a long way and you just want to get it done. And then another, you may be feeling that fatigue and that performance sort of dropping off at the back end of the bike. But this time I felt super strong. I've done a lot of work on the cycle element this year. And the work I've done in the few weeks leading up to that race meant I was able to stay near the front. And then we get off the bike, it's kind of just managing the conditions as well. So for all of that, you're just constantly doing a lot of admin. So out the swim, you're sort of bottle of water, cool yourself down. On the bike, you've got your nutrition, you've got how many carbs you're doing, you've really planned everything out. I've got at the aid station at Harvey, which is just over halfway, where you're allowed to bag drop in the morning. I had a frozen bottle of hydration system, got that on the bike, and it was still ice cold, which was amazing. All those things, and then every 10 miles you've got an aid station, so you're like, right, I need a bottle in there, then I need to grab the next bottle, I need to cool myself down, I need to cool my head, and everyone's going through that process. Yeah. So you're just constantly thinking, so there isn't really time, I guess, to kind of be off it in a race like that. At that level in the World Championships, you've got to be fully planned and constantly thinking of what you're going to do next, rather than reacting to something that you maybe haven't done. And then you get onto the run. Again, I felt great, and I just started the run, and I just thought, I need to slow myself down. It's a long way to go. I'm feeling brilliant. I ran into the lead, overtook a friend of mine, and I was just like, this is the day. This is the day I'm going to have swim, bike, run, and it's going to be perfect. And then I had a bit of a low point between 10 and 15 miles where I don't know, maybe the heat, the energy that I've consumed, or what I think maybe happened is I'm a really high salty sweater. So if I'm losing a couple of litres an hour, you can't replace that, but also I lose a lot of sodium in that sweat as well. So I think I take on a lot of water and not enough sodium. And when I then managed that on the course, I managed to get back running to a fairly decent pace to what I was running before. And then when I was going through the most difficult part of the course, which is famous, called the Energy Lab, which is 50-degree tarmac bouncing heat up at you whilst you're already hot, and you're 16, 18 miles into a run that's kind of thrown everything at you all day anyway. I actually felt pretty good there and managed to just bring it home, and at that point it was that I knew that I was pretty secure in just holding on to my second place and not worried about chasing first, because that was, could all go wrong if I started doing that. And then, like I said earlier, getting to that finishing line and seeing the family, and you kind of, I think someone described it as, you're going to war with your body, and everyone is on that course, and it's just the journey that you take that day to get to the finishing line. And when you're seeing top pros that are walking and sticking their heads in ice buckets and things, you're thinking, I've not done a bad job,
Did you have, and we maybe touched on this briefly with the jellyfish sting, or suspected jellyfish sting, but were there any unexpected challenges? And if there was, how did you handle those?
I did have one, just got to be a bit PC with how I say this. So there's a bit of controversy with things that happen at the race, which never happened at our sport before, where there's a bit of unsportsmanship before the race, and there's a few reports where a couple of guys had their tyres let down in transition, and someone's seat post was really dangerous, was loosened. Luckily noticed before the race started, because you rack all your bikes and your bags the night before, you get there the next day and you just do the last minute tweaks. Luckily a friend of mine pulled his out and realised that he had some issues, which then made me reflect, going, well, hang on a minute, I went to my run bag and I had my gels and all in a little race bag with pockets, but they weren't in there. So I kind of was like, that's probably why I struggled a little bit on the run as well. I managed to find a couple at the bottom of the bag, but the others weren't there. So I was kind of managing myself on nutrition on the run. So that was an obstacle I had to overcome, and maybe that might have contributed to the low point between 10 and 15 miles. It still might have happened anyway, I'm never going to know that, but it definitely didn't help. But I was in such a zone that day that I didn't let it affect me, but I did lose a bit of time in transition when I was trying to search for them, grab the gels, and then they dropped on the floor, and then I was trying to pick them back up and all, whereas before that everything was perfectly laid out. Yeah. So when you're on a good day, you kind of have to just put those things to the side and just crack on, and
How does the result compare to what you expected going into the race?
My expectations of my own performance is if I perform to my best and I'm beaten, you know, I'm not necessarily happy with that, but that's all I can do. So I am happy as long as I know I've performed to my best of my abilities, and I knew that my best race and everything is competitive, and I just wanted to make sure that I was competitive on that day. And with change of dynamics this year, having a young family, and there's other people on the start line with the same, that actually you're just trying to get every little bit of the performance out of you. Whereas before, your whole life was dedicated to that race in 2019. That was all I focused on for 6 months in that year. Whereas now I've got other focuses alongside that, and it was just making sure that I could get a good performance out of myself, or the best performance out of myself, which I think I managed to do.
What aspects of your training did you feel paid off most in this year's event?
I think the preparation going into this race, the key thing is the heat training. And I'm very lucky to have support of a sponsor, Precision Fuel and Hydration, and they have a lot of work to do around, and that's one of the massive differences I've made over the last 4 or 5 years and helped me in 2019, is knowing the nutritional side of it that I need to really work on. So before it was kind of like you maybe get away with races because you've done enough, but this time you're really planning out that nutrition, that hydration, that fueling, all those things, that it is planned out exactly what I need for the amount of time that I'm racing. So preparing for that and practicing your nutrition at the weekends, doing sauna work, putting extra clothing on for runs and indoor cycling, and then we had a week in Texas beforehand in the woodlands where you're acclimatising then to the humidity of things, where, you know, a week before the race, one day I was like horrendous day on the run, you know, didn't take on enough, thought I took on enough, and then you're halfway around the run going, oh my God, next week's going to be a killer. But then you kind of learn from that, and then 2 days later I get for a run in that conditions, and I'm like, I feel good at this. So it was that prep close to the race, but that prep, you know, several months out, and doing the heat prep work leading into the race is probably the key thing.
Were there any adjustments that you made mid-event that helped?
Yeah, I don't think it's reacting. So we are racing, yeah. So you are, although you're trying to go from, you know, the start of the race to the end of the race, and it's who slows down the least by the end of the race wins, basically. And it's a war of attrition of the body and whose body can last till that finishing line. So it's kind of just constantly trying to manage your body and reacting to it. Now, my warning signs when things aren't going right are kind of the same. So if I need energy, or I need hydration, or I'm overheating, like, I have the same feeling. So I need to kind of work out, well, what did I have last, what do I need now, to try and work out what it is. Whereas some people, if they lost a lot of electrolytes and things, that they might cramp and things, and then they know what that is, whereas mine is literally the same. So I would just feel lightheaded, a bit weak and everything, so I kind of just have to manage that. And that's the point I got to at 10 to 15 miles on the run, where I was feeling lightheaded, loose, my pace was slowing down, my body's telling me I need to slow down. So it's getting to that next aid station thinking I need to take some sodium tablets, I need to get some Coca-Cola in me to have some quick energy, and because I didn't have enough gels on me, and kind of just reacting to what the body wants and what the body needs, and then just kind of just try not to worry about anything else at the time.
How do you plan to celebrate or reflect on your performance?
Or, you know, it's time to celebrate at the time, you know, at the finish, you know, with the family. That was kind of the key moment for me. Or, you know, one of them said to my wife that I'll see you in a minute. It was an hour and a half later after I managed to eventually walk out of the medical tent because I was in a bad way. And I definitely wasn't the worst in the medical tent, and a friend of mine was certainly in worse shape than I was. But and then seeing them afterwards, and you're so physically drained and mentally drained of that concentration and everything you've been doing in the lead up to the race, you know. And people say the energy in the race week as well, you know, there's so much going on that you just need to try and keep yourself calm and composed, because you don't want to waste too much energy. And 2-3 days out from the race, I was really quite anxious one morning. I almost felt emotional the morning I got up, and then the day or two before the race I kind of was okay again. It was just that one day, that was the moment I was like, well, I need to just calm things back down, and having the family around you helps. So so celebrating with them over the finish line, you're almost emotional because everything's built up and your body, you're so physically drained, you could probably just fall asleep standing upright, at the time. And the awards evening, they have the next day. And like we said, the famous thing about Hawaii is getting a meki bowl, which is a wooden bowl which is sacred to the culture of Hawaii, which to get another one of those really meant a lot. And being up on the podium with friends you've raced with for years, and a Spanish guy I know and a German guy I know that we've raced each other over the years is really quite something special. I think we probably need to celebrate as a family a little bit now I'm home, but I haven't managed to get around to that quite yet. But often you reflect at the race, like that's all I could give at the time, and because I'm such a competitor afterwards, I can't help but think, and I still think about it every day, like, what if that was slightly different on the run? Because I still think that I didn't run to the performance and the training that I've done. I managed to do a very good run, but I was hoping that, and I still look back going, I know I was in shape to still maybe etch out a little bit more. So then that niggles at you, but you're like, you couldn't do anything more at the time. Yeah. So I do need to celebrate those successes a bit more, and maybe I'm sometimes a little bit more harsh on my performance as the days go away from the race compared to closer to the time.
What did you learn from this experience that you'll take into the next event? Now, I know you said this was your last Kona. Is it your last Kona? Have you itched the scratch?
Do you know what, I was very, it did feel a bit different on the day when I was racing and reflecting, and how at times when you're thinking about it, I was really comfortable with the fact that this is the last time I do it. My family needs to come first, and there's so much sacrifice that go in with that, whether that's not being home in the early mornings when I'm out training and all these sort of things, and maybe missing a few key moments that I need to be there to be with them. But being an athlete and performing and everything is always going to be there. It's just how I direct that energy and what I do. Now I'm not saying I'm not going to race triathlons next season. That's not the case. I still love performance and love performing at that maximum level. It's just whether I can sacrifice that much time to do a performance like that at an event. And maybe I won't train, to that level for a long time. There's nothing saying years to come I might not come back to that if the family situation and the time that I have on the time that I have to be able to do that. But at the moment, I'm gonna have to be more time efficient with my training, and I'm still gonna train hard. I'm still gonna train, and hopefully I'll still get some epic performances out of that.
So you've scratched the itch for a minute.
Okay. And the biggest itch was, like I said, last time was going to be my last time. I can't keep saying that. Last time was the last time until I got sick 2 days before the race, and was in bed and couldn't move, and then somehow miraculously managed to get to the finishing line, which is still probably one of the greatest achievements I've managed to do with the condition I was in. So now it's like, what other little goals can I do along the way? Like anyone, like I said in the last videos, everyone needs those little targets to get them out of bed in the morning to train and different things. Now, I just love being fit and healthy and always will, so I'll always be at that level, I think.
Okay. Who or what was your biggest source of motivation during the competition? Is there, and I know what you'll say, family-wise, I think from the fact that they were there, there's got to be some points where you have to dig deep, go really dark with it, and your family being there and whatever. Probably for me that would be what would push me to go for it.
I think through those dark moments, and it's almost easier in this sport to understand that sense of it, because you do go through those moments, and with such an endurance event, if there's an 800 metre runner or someone else, they're never going to get to that point because the event's so short. But with this event, there's so many thoughts that goes through your head. You're racing for 8.5 hours, so there's so much that goes on, and it's really hard to kind of remember everything that's there. And as positive I am, and like other athletes are, there's still going to be those moments of self-doubt that why are you doing this, why does that happen, you know, why do I feel like this on the run? Why am I back doing this race? This is ridiculous. Said last time I'm not going to do this again. This is feeling horrendous. How do I now manage myself to get around the next 14 miles of the run after racing for, you know, 7 hours or whatever it is? So you always have those thoughts, and you just have to kind of take a little bit at a time. Say, I just need to get to that next aid station. I just need to get on a bit more fluids. I just need to put some ice down my back. I just need to get some ice in the scarf I've got and put that on. I just need to do this at the next aid station. You kind of just take those little moments at a time. If I thought you've got to run for the next hour and a half feeling horrendous, then you kind of just, I don't know, your body might give up, you might give up. So it's just kind of take those little steps towards that next bit and just almost hoping that you can come out of that.
Yeah.
And maybe there's an element that you look back at your performance going, actually, once I've got through that bad stage, could I have kicked on a little bit more, you know? And you look at your stats and your pace and things, well, could I have edged out a bit more, you know, without collapsing over the line and feeling in a totally horrendous way. But yeah, it's just managing it. And you get to an aid station and you're kind of like, right, this aid station, I've got a bottle in this hand that's down my suit, but I need to fill that up with some ice cold water. So then in between aid stations, I'm squirting myself to cool off so I don't overheat and the core body temperature doesn't get up and all those side of things. And then the next one, I need to get ice, water, fluids, hydration, energy, Coke, next one, you know. So it's just constantly managing those things and thinking about those things to break things down and kind of almost distract the mind a little bit as well, or looking forward to something. I had a ice cold flask that was a hydro flask in the energy lab, and somehow at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after dropping it off in the morning when I ran through there, you know, it was still cold because I'd iced it up. So running out of the hottest part of the run course with that was almost like something to look forward to. Sounds insane now, but yeah, it was like liquid gold at the time, yeah. But yeah, you just got to break things down and just take it step by step. And that doesn't matter if you're doing an Ironman that long, or whether you're doing your first 5k run or 10k run, you know, or you're doing a park run for the first time, you know. If you're only used to running down the road, you know, next time try and run a bit further. There's all those things you just need to kind of distract the mind a little bit and just say to yourself that I can do this, I can get that a little bit further, you know, just need to just push myself now, and this is it. I'd always say to people that they need to set realistic goals and targets and little targets along the way. So whether it's completing their first Ironman or their first ever triathlon, and it might be where they want to go in the next 3, 4, 5 years, and having that end goal and then just making little goals along the way that will help them achieve their end goal, but not comparing themselves to other people. And a lot of people do that all the time, compare themselves to what other people's performances are like, or I want to be like that when I get to that level. And I can remember doing one of my first big races, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. If someone said to me, you'd race at that level, at that time, I would go, I'll bite your hand off, I'd love to be able to that level. But then when you get to that level, you then want to go to the next level. And it's a case of just staircasing that performance. So if they're looking to perform to a high standard, it's just what they need to do to get there, and what improvements, you know, is it the swim, is it the bike, where can they make the biggest gains to start with? But most of all, just enjoy it and enjoy the process. So, you know, the reason why I've done this for many years is because I enjoy training, I enjoy the people that I train with, and it's just kind of having that network and those people around you. Join some local clubs. So if you're a triathlete, go to the run club as well and run with some people from the running club, do some running races and do other things along the way that help improve your performance, but also that level of enjoyment, and try and make it so the people around you and your friends are kind of on the journey with you, and just get them involved.
Neil, once again, congratulations. It's been a pleasure documenting your journey through this to get to the finish line in Kona. I wish you all the best for the future, and I expect we will meet again.
Yeah, hopefully with another medal around my neck.